afternoon. I hope you all have been enjoying day 2 of Greening the State House so far. My name is Emily Plunkett, and I am the Manager of Outreach with Hoosier Environmental Council. It has been a joy to be with you all today and yesterday, and it is my honor to get to introduce our next panel to the stage. Just a reminder before I introduce them, though, if you have any technical difficulties, please be sure to use our event chat, which you can access on the right side of your screen. You can also email gts@hecweb.org if you have any questions. Any questions or comments for our speakers, though, should be sure to add those to the stage chat, also accessible on the right side of your screen. Our next presentation is by members of the grassroots student organization Confront the Climate Crisis. As you heard about earlier today in our HEC Awards, Confront the Climate Crisis began in fall of 2020 and has grown to include over 150 students from all around the state of Indiana, from Terre Haute to Gary to Evansville. Confront the Climate Crisis is completely student-led as well. Our speakers today are coming from West Lafayette: Rahul, Durai, Annabelle, Prokopy, and Ethan Bledsoe. They will be sharing about a bipartisan piece of climate legislation they are working on with State Senator Ron Atling to initiate strong climate action here in Indiana. And without further ado, I would like to welcome them to the stage. All right, welcome.
All right, hi everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. We're super excited to talk about Confront the Climate Crisis and our other organization here in West Lafayette called West Lafayette Climate Strikes. If we could go to the next slide, we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Annabelle Prokopy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a senior at West Lafayette High School in West Lafayette. And I'm also a co-executive director for Confront the Climate Crisis.
And then if you want to go to the next slide. Hello, my name is Ethan. I'm also a senior at West Lafayette. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm also a co-executive director for Confront the Climate Crisis.
And on the next slide, my name is Rahul Durai. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a sophomore at West Lafayette Junior Senior High School. I'm our campaigns operation director, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So as I said, we're all members of West Lafayette Climate Strikes and Confront the Climate Crisis. So we just wanted to give a little bit of backstory about who we are and how we started before we talk about what we're going to be doing next semester. So we started West Lafayette Climate Strikes back in May of 2019 after realizing that there was little to no action locally in our city. We stepped up to be the change that we wanted to see, planning our first climate strike in less than a month. To prepare, we just got a group of friends together. They were mostly from our freshman honors English class, and we really were just super empowered by what we were seeing around the globe, and we wanted to make that impact in our community. We held the strike in a random parking lot, and we just tried to get as many students as we could to come to the first strike.
When we started this movement, a lot of people doubted us. Many adults said that this was just a phase we were going through, that we were just a bunch of dumb, attention-seeking teenagers that was wasting our time and everyone else's time involved. But well, 2.5 years later, what have we done with that time? A lot, to say the least.
We spent the summer of 2019 engaging with our city council and trying to push for the repeal of the windmill ban, which basically banned windmills in Tippecanoe County. We later shifted our focus to a climate neutrality resolution for the city of West Lafayette. And the traction that we made on the local level with our mayor and with our city councilors helped us to make a local impact, eventually passing the climate neutrality resolution back in October of 2019. This followed a very powerful strike that we held on September 27th of that year, which was a huge milestone for our group, attracting the largest crowd of participants that we'd ever had and empowering us even more. From there, we just kept going. It's safe to say that we have incorporated our visions for the future into ambition, and we're here to make an impact.
Throughout that winter, we formed community connections and grew stronger in preparation for what we plan to do the next semester. But like with everything else in the world, our plans were stifled in March 2020. So in between baking banana bread, binging Tiger King, and figuring out how to politely ask people to mute on Zoom, we planned a virtual climate strike on September 24th called Unite Behind the Science, Connecting COVID and Climate Change. And then throughout that spring and early summer, we organized solely on a virtual platform through social media graphics, videos, webinars, and community check-ins.
Now, cut to July of 2020. We're sitting in my backyard, 6 feet apart, brainstorming what we wanted to do next as a team in West Lafayette. We took a moment to realize the impact that we'd already made on our local community from passing the climate neutrality resolution and really just starting these conversations with our local politicians. But the question that we had was, is this enough? And the answer is that it's not. Indiana has the highest carbon footprint per capita in the Midwest. And if we want to fix climate change, we need all of Indiana and not just our city to be involved in the solution. If we want to solve climate change, then we need to take our state politicians need to take us seriously. We need them to confront the climate crisis.
And here we are, doing exactly that. We launched our statewide campaign on September 25th, 2020, with 100 people from across Indiana. We garnered support and put together a large group of students through volunteer meetings and social media posts. We spent the next couple of months forming new connections, reaching out to other high schoolers, and deciding the future of our campaign to advocate for specific climate legislation and make noise.
We raised our voices, holding our first event in March of 2021 called Confront the Climate Emergency. This took place outside of the Indianapolis State House, and we delivered a letter to Governor Holcomb urging him to address the climate emergency. This also happened to be the first time that we were able to meet the other students in our campaign in person. We'd been organizing on Zoom for around 6 months. This was a super powerful day. And at that event, we as the students of Indiana also declared a climate emergency, doing what our state government had so far failed to do.
And then fast forward to this past summer, one of the most rewarding and productive summers we've ever had. Our legislative endeavor all started with a meeting in May with Senator Alting. Here, we presented our campaign and discussed drafts of climate legislation. The senator's enthusiasm for our initiative led us to having meetings in early June at the State House, including one with Governor Holcomb. At these meetings, we received valuable feedback on our movement and effective strategies for making an impact at the State House. For the rest of June, we worked to fundraise for the campaign through Carmel Fest and organized another event outside the State House called Craft for Climate, selling our t-shirts with the awesome logo designed by Chloe Sun, and met with influential organizations across Indiana to prepare for our legislative initiative that Rahul will be discussing in a few minutes.
Now, what makes our movement so powerful is that we're not only young people who are crazy passionate about change, real, meaningful, crucial change, but we are young people who are working together. Our movement has grown to incorporate over 150 student volunteers from across Indiana, from Greater Lafayette to Carmel, Indianapolis, Hammond, Kokomo, Gary, Alexandria, Evansville, Fishers, Bloomington, Terre Haute, Fort Wayne, and Crawfordsville.
But we haven't only gained traction by growing our volunteer base. We've also hit milestones on our petition to confront the climate crisis in Indiana, recently surpassing 18,000 signatures. Moreover, despite having to organize primarily through Zoom, we have had a great team dynamic in which everyone is able to have fun by meeting up in person for sleepovers, watching fireworks together on the 4th of July, and many more. But still, we all step up and get work done.
But that's not even the most of it. At one of our late night core team meetings this past year, which had already gone an hour over time because we just love talking to each other and we love organizing for what we're passionate about, we were discussing a meeting that we'd had with a congressional staff member earlier that day. They had told us that if we wanted to meet with the senator himself, Senator Braun, we could do so in southern Indiana or jokingly in Washington, D.C. It didn't seem like much of a choice, and we just said, bet.
Although it started off as a joke, on July 18th, we left for Washington, D.C. There, we met with the Indiana congressional delegation in the Senate and House office buildings, formed connections with activists from across the country, and most importantly, became even closer friends. It was truly a great week, and it empowered us even more to leave the impact that we envisioned for Indiana.
Flash forward. Now we're here with all of you to discuss something to shape Indiana's future for the better, You are a part of this change, and we are convinced that we can leave an impact here in Indiana, and we're doing that today.
But before we do, we want to address something of great importance. One of our former substitute teachers once said, students should not be taught that you can just leave your job to just go parading around the streets, especially when you have no specific plan to change the climate.
Well, we think that this is the perfect time to introduce our specific plan to combat climate change. Here is Rahul Durai to discuss our 2022 state legislative initiative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rahul. Thank you, Annabelle and Ethan. I first want to apologize. I have some weird internet right now, so if I cut out, please bear with me. Our state and our planet are facing a climate crisis, and this emergency is why our movement is here today, and it's why we are organizing for change in our state. Given the crisis our state is facing, we look to our state government, and unfortunately, we see inaction. We see the intensity and urgency of this crisis being unmet with policy. We need our state government to treat the climate crisis as the crisis it is, and to systematically implement necessary policies to mitigate climate change. We need climate and environmental justice. So Emily, if you go to the next slide. 4 months ago, in May of this year, several of my peers and I met with our state senator, Ron Alting, in our school library to talk about the climate crisis and how Indiana can be a leader. That day, we made a partnership more powerful than we could have dreamed of. Senator Alting was totally on board and committed to working with us, and we were proud and grateful to have the longest-serving Republican senator in Indiana on our side. After that meeting, we got to work. We met with legislators, policy experts, businesses, stakeholder organizations, and community organizers to discuss how the state of Indiana can be a leader in systematically mitigating climate change. And after months of hard work, we officially announced our legislation with Senator Alting at a climate strike/press conference on September 24th. If you go to the next slide, there are some pictures from the
All right, it sounds like Rahul cut off, but while we're waiting for him, Ethan and I can go ahead and pick up where he left off. So this just is our pictures from our September 24th event, and it was a super powerful day. We had a ton of students from our school walk out and in the middle of the school day, and we walked to the pedestrian bridge in West Lafayette, and we officially announced our legislation. Rahul, you can go ahead.
Awesome. Well, my apologies, I cut out. But yeah, this is some pictures from our event back in September. And Emily, if you go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our relation.
I think Rahul might be cutting out still. Are you back, Rahul? If not, I can just go over the overview of the CoCurrent Resolution. So basically, the whole point of the legislation is to acknowledge the problem of climate change. It also puts Purdue University's scientific research on the record. It addresses the economic development Indiana can attain through sustainability. It also endorses the framework of providing farmers with opportunities to voluntarily participate in climate action. And finally, it proclaims that we must protect workers in their communities in the energy transition, so a just transition away from fossil fuels. Next slide. And then next, the bill. Basically the goal of the bill is to start a conversation in the State House. So what it does is it creates the Climate and Environmental Justice Task Force, which would run from May 2022 to November 2022. So a pretty short span of time. And it brings stakeholders and experts to the table, including climate researchers and experts in environmental justice, representatives of key industries, and a representative of labor unions, and finally a youth climate activist, which we think is very important to have have youth involved in the conversation. Finally, the Senate bill requires the task force to create a climate action plan with policy recommendations for climate action, environmental justice, and sustainable economic development. So just really bringing those like ideas that they talk about in the conversation to like fruition through policy. And I think that's all we have prepared for today in terms of the legislation. So that covers basically the entirety of the past few years and what we've been working on. And we're just so thankful that we were here and able to discuss that all with you. So thank you so much for listening to us.
And if you go, I think there might be a few more slides, but if you go to the last slide, the one right before that. Yeah, so we are building a coalition of organizations and businesses to support this climate legislation. So at this meeting, we just want to ask that if you are part of an organization or a business and you're interested in having your name on our climate legislation to help persuade our legislators to pass it, then you can endorse it at tinyurl.com/climatecoalitionform. And I'm not sure if there's a way to put that in like a chat, but if someone's able to do that, that would be awesome. And yeah, you can also just follow us at Confront the Climate Crisis on social media, and we have all that information on social media.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all so much for your time today. Really appreciate your presentation and your dedication. We will now be transitioning into our final panel of the day, and we'll be sure to drop that chat or that link you mentioned in the chat as well. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.